Have you ever looked at a set of materials and wondered what experiment you could do with them? Scientists do this all the time. Today, we will learn how to identify questions that can be investigated using a set of materials. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to think like a scientist and create your own testable questions. Again, this is High5 Einstein. Are you ready? Let's get started. Scientists use available materials and equipment to investigate questions. An investigable question is a question that can be tested, measured, and answered through an experiment. Before we learn how to identify investigable questions, let's first understand some important science terms. These key ideas will help us decide whether a question can be tested fairly and answered using the materials provided. Let's start with investigable question, a question that can be tested through an experiment. Next, materials, the equipment used in an investigation. Observation, information collected using the senses or measuring tools. Then, measurement, data collected using scientific instruments. Lastly, fair test rule, only one variable should be changed at a time. Now, let's learn the steps for identifying an investigable question. These steps help scientists use the materials available to create questions that can be tested and answered through an investigation. Step 1. Look at the materials provided. Step 2. Identify what can be changed. Step 3. Identify what can be measured or observed. Step 4. Create a testable question. Step 5. Check if the materials can answer the question. And Step 6. Plan the investigation. Now, let's look at some examples of investigable questions. These examples show how scientists use available materials to create questions that can be tested, measured, and answered through an investigation. Let's look at our first example, solar panel and sunlight. We have a solar panel, a lamp, a voltmeter, and a ruler. Using these materials, we can ask, how does the distance from a light source affect the energy produced by a solar panel? We can test this by moving the light source and measuring the energy output. Let's look at our second example, eucalyptus seedlings. We have eucalyptus seedlings, pots, soil, and water. Using these materials, we can ask, how does the amount of sunlight affect the growth of eucalyptus seedlings? We can test this by placing the seedlings in different amounts of sunlight and measuring their growth. Let's look at our third example, surfboard investigation. We have surfboards, a measuring tape, and a stopwatch. Using these materials, we can ask, how does surfboard length affect the distance traveled on a wave? We can test this by measuring how far different surfboards travel. Now let's explore some real-life applications of investigable questions. These examples show how scientists use materials, collect evidence, and answer important questions through scientific investigations. Real-life application. Number 1. Marine science. Scientists investigate how water temperature affects coral growth. They use materials such as coral samples, water tanks, and thermometers to collect and measure data. Real-life application. Number 2. Ecology. Scientists investigate how habitat changes affect koala populations. They use observation tools, cameras, and field surveys to gather information and answer their questions. Finally, let's compare investigable and non-investigable questions. This will help us identify which questions can be tested using the materials provided and which questions cannot be answered through an experiment. Not investigable question example. We have magnets and paper clips, but not every question can be investigated using these materials. Questions like, which magnet is the coolest? And why do people like magnets? These questions are based on opinions or personal preferences. Since they cannot be measured, observed, or tested through an experiment, they are not investigable questions. Investigable question example. We have magnets and paper clips, and these materials can be used to investigate scientific questions. Questions like, how does the number of magnets affect the number of paper clips attracted? And how does the distance from a magnet affect magnetic attraction? These questions can be measured, observed, and tested through an experiment. Since evidence can be collected to answer them, they are investigable question. Now, let's check what you know. Let's do the practice test. Are you ready? Question 1. What is an investigable question? A. An opinion-based question. B. A question that can be tested. C. A belief-based question. Or D. A question about the past. The correct answer is letter B. A question that can be tested through an investigation. Question 2. What should you look at first? A. The results. B. The conclusion. C. The materials provided. Or D. The graph. The correct answer is letter C. The materials provided. Question 3. Which question can be investigated using seeds, soil, and water? A. Why are plants important? B. How does the amount of water affect plant growth? C. What is the best plant? Or D. Are plants interesting? The correct answer is letter B. How does the amount of water affect plant growth? Question 4. Why must a question match the available materials? A. So it can be tested fairly. B. To make the experiment harder. C. To avoid collecting data. Or D. To change many variables. The correct answer is letter A. So it can be tested fairly. Question 5. Which is an investigable question? A. What is the best Australian animal? B. Why do people enjoy cricket? C. How does practice time affect batting accuracy? Or D. Should people play more sport? The correct answer is letter C. How does practice time affect batting accuracy? Good job! Today, you learned how to identify questions that can be investigated using a set of materials. Remember, a good scientific question must be testable, measurable, and possible to investigate with the equipment available. Thank you for learning with High5 Education, and see you again in our next science lesson. If you'd like to book a class or learn more about our programs, we'd love to hear from you. Simply check the contact details on your screen to get in touch with us. We offer expert tutoring and digital skills courses for students and parents through both online and face-to-face sessions. We look forward to learning with you. See you next time!